Thank you again to our partners at the Geena Davis Institute, and in particular, Geena Davis and Madeline Di Nonno and all their wonderful team, and to the panelists today for taking the time to speak on this important topic. I hope you enjoy this meaningful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hanna. And now, without further ado, I would love to welcome Dr. Larissa Terán, who is our Director of Media Research at the Institute. Take it away, Larissa.
Okay, hi everybody, and thank you for joining us today as we unpack our research for the state of disability on screen. My name is Dr. Larissa Terán, and I'm going to be walking through our report today. So let's go ahead and get started with the methodology of our study. The purpose of our study was to understand how disability portrayals on TV have changed over time. We also wanted to assess how they might be contributing to shifting societal attitudes about disability. To accomplish this, we conducted a content analysis of scripted television, and we compiled a total of 350 scripted television series across the span of 8 years from 2016 through 2023. We included streaming, cable, and broadcast, which all originated in the United States. We identified prominent characters in each of our programs, and we looked at various variables, such as whether the characters are disabled and if the actors playing that character are disabled as well, among other variables that I'll be going over today. The share of characters with disabilities on TV ranged from a low of 2.6% in 2020 to a high of 5.1% in 2017. And if we look at the entire statistical pattern over the span of 8 years, our analysis indicates that there is no positive or negative trend in disability representation on screen over the 8 years that we looked at. So in other words, disability representation on TV has been fairly steady over the last 8 years that we looked at. We also looked at disabled characters by broadcast, cable, and streaming platforms. So in other words, is there a difference in the share of disabled characters for each platform? Overall, among streaming services, we found that 4.7% of characters had a disability, while among broadcast and cable, 3.3% had a disability. Once again, our analysis indicates that there is no significant difference of disabled characters between broadcast, cable, and streaming platforms. Of course, there are a few notable differences throughout, but they are not large enough to capture a statistical difference over time. Of particular interest to our study was whether disabled characters on screen are played by actors who are disabled as well. Overall, just 21% of characters with a disability were authentically cast by actors with the same or a similar disability. Our statistical analysis shows that there is once again no positive or negative trend in authentic casting over the 8 years that we looked at. So this has also remained fairly steady. The disability was 9.4% in 2018, but the highest share of authentically cast characters was 33.3% in 2016. Next, we present the intersectional findings among disabled characters. So in other words, how diverse are disabled characters? At the intersection of disability and race, we found that white characters are about 1.5 times as likely to be portrayed as having a disability than characters of color. The year of production is not a significant predictor here, meaning that racial diversity of disabled characters, again, is largely stable over the time frame that we looked at. And at the intersection of disability and queer identity, we found that queer characters were about twice as likely to be depicted as having a disability than those who are not queer. Again, the year of production is not a significant predictor, meaning that disabled representation among queer characters is again largely stable over the 8 years we looked at. One important way that characters can be portrayed as leaders or as ambitious on screen is by having an occupation. In this slide, we present those findings. We find that 56.9% of characters with a disability who are 20 years or older are shown working or known to have a job in the television programs we looked at. compared with 67.8% of characters without a disability who are 20 and older. So in short, characters over 20 with a disability are less likely to be shown working than characters over 20 without a disability. Now I'm going to conclude with a few recommendations, but our report includes many, many more. Our panel will also discuss more actionable ways to increase authentic disabled representation on screen, which is grounded in their experiences in the industry. So first, we recommend adopting authentic casting practices. We believe that this will lead to more accurate portrayals in the media. Second, we recommend being conscientious of intersecting identities when writing and casting characters with disabilities. So consider various identities such as race, gender, and age when you are casting disabled actors. Third, in narratives, we recommend rejecting the presumption that disability means different. So challenge the idea that disability is abnormal and instead recognize disability as one intersecting identity among many others. And finally, make accessibility common and unremarkable on screen. So make sets accessible for those with and without apparent disabilities. Or also adopt inclusive design by integrating accommodations into the backdrop of a story. So this can be things such as ramps, assistive technologies, or signs with Braille. Thank you very much. And if you would like to read our full report, which has many other findings, these are just very little, please visit our website. And back to you, Madeline.
Thank you so much, Larissa. And so now I have the privilege of welcoming some extraordinary artists and activists and advocates. I will start welcoming with Becky Curran, who is the Senior Director of Stakeholder Engagement for Becky Motivates. I would like to welcome Anthony Lucero, who is a director and filmmaker. I would love to welcome Kaitlyn Yang, Visual Effects Supervisor and 1in4 co-founder. And last but not certainly least, Yaeger, who is a filmmaker and an actor. Welcome, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today. And Anthony, I am going to start with you. You have moved from producing movies with dazzling effects at Industrial Light and Magic, and professional experiences led you to write and direct the wonderful Paper Bag Plan, which everyone, we actually were able to interview Anthony, and we have a wonderful editorial piece on the GDI website. So why was it important for you to keep the story authentic and grounded in reality?
Thank you, Madeline. It was important. It was inspired by my mom, and she took care of my brother, Eddie. And Eddie, they asked what his disability is. And what I usually say is what he could do is he could open his mouth. When my mom would put pureed food up to his mouth, he could open it. That was the extent of what my brother could do. So the thought of him, being able to work in a grocery store like my characters would have been amazing. So it was always written for a mother and son, and then it was changed. We actually couldn't find an actress. I kept getting turned down when we'd reach out to all these actresses, so I changed it to a father-son, which was good. I didn't want people to make too many correlations between, is that your mother up there on screen? Because the character's an alcoholic as well. So I didn't want people to make too much of a correlation there, but it was grounded in reality. It was also inspired by my sister Margie, who passed away in 2018 of cancer. And the story Paper Bag Plan is about a father who has cancer, and he's in a race against time to train his son how to bag groceries so that he'll get a job and become independent. So my sister Margie left behind her daughter, Sarah, who has Angelman's syndrome. And so it was the story is kind of a combination between these two fabulous women in my life. And just to answer the other question of how did I go into this independent filmmaking, working on all these very large budget visual effects films. And I just have to say briefly that, I worked a couple of decades in visual effects, and I would pour my heart and soul and time into these films, and the effects, they looked fantastic, but I felt that these stories, they lacked story. They lacked character development. They lacked heart. And instead of complaining about it, I just decided I need to make my own films with zero visual effects whatsoever, and just concentrate on story, concentrate on what matters. And that's when I made a little film called East Side Sushi, about a Latina who wants to become a sushi chef. So I tend to write these characters that are underrepresented, or not represented at all in film and television. And that's, how I'm here today.
And we hope we'll have many, many more films from you. So, Kaitlyn, I'm going to turn over to you because, similar to Anthony, your personal experiences inspired you to also get involved in visual effects. And can you talk about your journey with your parents from China and what led you down that path instead of becoming a doctor like everyone else in the family?
Hello, everyone. It always makes me feel nostalgic thinking about my beginnings almost 30 years ago. But through a series of very fortunate events, we were able to immigrate from China to the U.S., mainly, due to laws that are still governing that parts of the world where if you have a disability, you are not allowed to attend school and participate in society. And so, really glad for all the I'm really grateful for all the sacrifices my parents made so I could explore what interested me. And, for a kid at that age, like so many other kids my age at that time, I was just mesmerized at all the spectacle, that visual effects has, the energy to bring. And so I was really fascinated mainly for the world building and how there wasn't a ceiling for imagination. You could be and think and do whatever you wanted to do in this made up world. And that was kind of my seedling for my love for film. I also started the trend of watching a movie a day. Back then, it was mainly to pick up the English language, but I think it really was my gateway of experiencing other people's lives on screen. And I was fascinated at all the types of varieties and all the different worlds that I could enter, just by kind of, hitting play on the VCR and what have you. And it's, one of the things that it's still one of my greatest love to this day. I love visual effects. I love the experiences and the nuance that we're able to add to everything on screen. And I'm really glad to be doing it 30 years later.
Thank you so much for that. And so we're talking about lived experiences, and for everyone on the panel, they're all deeply entrenched in entertainment. And Becky, your passion for entertainment and representation harkens back to your college days. So can you talk about those experiences, growing up seeing limited portrayals of dwarfism on screen, which led to your career in entertainment, working for major players like CAA and CBS and SAG-AFTRA?
Thank you for having me. So just a little context, I am a person with dwarfism. So there's only about 65,000 of us in the United States and about 1.5 million worldwide. So that means most people get their portrayals of dwarfism in the media. And there are very few positive portrayals of people with dwarfism in the media. So that impacts whether a parent even wants to decide to take their child home once they receive the diagnosis of dwarfism. That's how deep it goes. So my parents, who are actually watching today, did not see much representation, but they had something in themselves that allowed them to believe that I was capable, and they helped me believe that as well. So most families, their perception comes from what we see in the media. So as I got closer to kind of deciding what I wanted to do as a career, I was a marketing major at a college where there was one other person with dwarfism, and that's why I decided to go there. And I ended up landing an internship at a company that worked with the general public and then the studios, and we would fill advanced screenings with the target audience and figure out what are some things we may need to change before the wide release. And in that experience, I felt that there were so many people who took this work seriously and they wanted to do a job like mine. And it made me think, how do I do more of it? So I kept getting more experience in publicity and promotions at a TV station. And then I worked in casting on a film that actually Peter Dinklage was in. I was initially asked to be his stand-in, but it conflicted with my last 2 weeks of college. So I needed to complete college because that was more important at that point in my life. But then right after college, even though I had 9 different internships, I ended up sending out 1,000 resumes, went on 100 interviews over the course of 4 months. Every time I walked in the door, I was judged based on my appearance. And a lot of those judgments come from what people previously saw in the media. Once I landed at Creative Artists Agency, I was still a temporary employee for 7 months before they took me seriously and hired me on full time. Then I was there for a total of 5 years because I was afraid of finding that next opportunity. Once there was an opportunity to work in casting, I had put together a panel discussion of disability representation in the media in 2011 and was given the platform at CAA to do so. It just really made sense for me to look into casting to help really find people with disabilities in those speaking roles. But once I landed at CBS, I was reading scripts, and one script even described someone who was 2 inches taller than a little person. And I had to fight to ask, why can't this just be a person with who's a little person? There's no reason why we can't do that. Or why can't we just have people with disabilities audition for roles that don't even describe disability, doctor, lawyer, whatever it may be. So really it influences how people like me are perceived in society. And as we know, the research we saw, there's still a long way to go. So we need to make sure that we continue to authentically portray, because even those people without dwarfism who are playing characters with dwarfism on TV with CGI animation, if they haven't met us, they're playing us based on how they think we are.
Thank you so much for that. And Becky, talking about casting and being on that side of the table. Now, Kurt, we're going to flip over to you. You have a stellar career. You have acted and performed your own stunts in hundreds and hundreds of episodes of major TV shows like Sons of Anarchy, NCIS, New Orleans. However, I'm going to quote you here. You said, the difference between able-bodied actors and disabled actors is able-bodied actors audition for both able-bodied and disabled roles, whereas disabled actors generally audition only for disabled roles. So how do we push to change this perception? What have you been doing to change this perception as well?
Thanks for having me. Really quickly, I'm a white male, long hair, big scruffy beard, and got a jean shirt on for all my hard of seeing folks. I think that the difficulty in casting specifically is, we use the word casting, and so we think casting director, and that has everything to do with casting. But casting is led by the director and the writers and the studio executives and the network execs and what the marketing is going to put into the capital of the show. So it's like this big question about casting. And a lot of times when they write characters, especially like leading characters or series regular characters that are obviously going to be in, 7, 8, 9 episodes, up to 10 episodes of a 10-episode show, they're not thinking, a full character and could have a disability. So they don't audition someone with a disability because they think of that as a character trait. So the for instance I use is a writer will often think, let me write a wheelchair user, and they write the wheelchair user. And I remind them a wheelchair is not a character trait, it's a mode of transportation. And so you try to disassociate the difference that Dr. Terán said about people with disabilities are different. You're like, no, you just have this other accoutrement. It's something else you have that's cool and interesting and different. It's good and it's bad. There are positives and negatives to the whole aspect of it. Me being an amputee, it has great for certain elements of life, like I can stub my toe in the middle of the night trying to walk to the bathroom, and it doesn't hurt. But, sometimes if I go on a longer hike, my leg does hurt. So there are, dual elements in that. But as far as casting goes, able-bodied actors read for able-bodied roles, and they read for disabled characters, which is why you only have, what was that number? Somewhere between 15 and 30% authentic representation of 3%. So the real number is like, 0.5% of authentic representation on camera? That's an atrocious number, where disabled performers will often not be able to audition outside of that scope. So they not only have a limited amount of auditions, which means a limited amount of experience and comfortability with even getting a shot, right? If you get one shot every year, your nerves are up here. If you get 20 shots, you throw it away, you start relaxing into it, you have enough shots that actually being potentially cast. And at the same time, casting directors, writers, directors, and producers don't get comfortable enough with you appearing in front of them over and over and over and over to be like, you know what, I do like that guy with a big bushy beard. I think he should be in our show. Like that's part of the problem with not getting enough auditions. And so it takes the writers, producers, directors, and studios executives to say, hey, listen, I don't care what the role is. I want to see 20 people, 30 people, 40 people per episode who are disabled auditioning for all roles on a regular basis, so I can start seeing who they are, not what I know their disability is.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Thank you, Kurt. And so, Anthony, we hear Kurt talking about choices, right? A filmmaker is making choices, and it's about impact over intent. And I just want to say, everyone, I have, depending on the day, dirty blonde, brown hair, and I'm all about the polka dots today. So Anthony, you were very intentional about your choices for your second directorial feature. It was self-financed by you and your wife. Can you talk about these choices, relating back to what Kurt was saying about approach to casting and filmmaking? And also, I know today we have a lot of filmmakers who are trying to get their projects made and trying to get their projects distributed. So if you can unpack us in terms of the art and craft of what you did to make your film.
Yeah, the authenticity is key for me. So when I wrote my screenplay, my character Billy was very specific, and so I did find a casting director. His name was Russell Boast, and he specialized in casting actors with disabilities. So that was his task: find my Billy. And it was 49 actors with disabilities came through. It was originally written as Latino. I try to represent Latinos as best I could, and that margin just narrows very quickly. Latino and disability. So then I just opened it up to any ethnicity, but they have to have a disability. So yeah, number 50 was Cole Massey, and good-looking guy. I was like, let's see if he could act, and so we auditioned him, and he could. I was like, well, great. I found my Billy. Now I have to. It was kind of a scary moment because I felt like now I have to move forward with the rest of this film. I told Cole, we're going to make this film, and now I have to do it. So, but that was first and foremost. And it's funny when you're on set, and I talked to Jillian Mercado, who's also a wheelchair user, and she would tell me they don't get cast oftentimes. Producers feel like it's too expensive to cast a person with a disability, to cast a wheelchair user. You have to provide ramps and ADA bathrooms, and you know what? It's not that hard. It's, our film we self-financed it. We paid for it ourselves, and we had an ADA compliant bathroom on set, and I had my brother building ramps and, putting these heavy duty ramps for stairs so that they could access in and out of the house. And you can do it. It's not that hard. So it's daunting if that is the reason why some people with disabilities are not cast. It's horrible. But yeah, it was important to cast somebody with a disability for this role, and I have to say it's a difficult process when you cast because oftentimes you can't see what their disability is on a Zoom. And so, but in my last film as well, it's like, I would cast for Latina, and I'd have Italian women audition. And so it's kind of hard to know, like, are these people able-bodied and they're just pretending that they have a disability or what? So you kind of have to, like, negotiate through that too as you're casting. But authenticity is key, and trying to find it, just have to find the right casting director to reach out to that pool of people.
Thank you for that. And Kaitlyn, I know this goes right to the heart of what you've been doing with 1 and 4. And I just want to quote a quote that you loved. And one of your favorite quotes is, "In the near future, disability will be synonymous worldwide with innovation." And that was from investor Regina Klein. You've worked on a wide range of TV and film productions, ranging from Robot Chicken to Grey's Anatomy. So can you talk about how you're using your current work, why you were a founder for 1 and 4, in your own hiring, to do just what Anthony was saying, is just make films and content, make more opportunities, and also make these productions more accessible?
Absolutely. I saw someone in the comments saying, how can we change the narrative so disability and access is not merely too expensive? And what I found in my going on 20 years of working in visual effects is that most of the time, right, I'm still the only wheelchair user on set. And so all the ramps that the production teams and the location managers make for me, they actually benefit everyone. Because if you think about it, every department in film and TV production, they have carts of some sort. And essentially everyone is just lugging massive amounts of equipment on wheels. And I was on a series for Apple. And at the end of it, the production manager found me and said, the 2 ramps we built for you that took someone about 15 minutes ended up saving us 1 month of billable time. And so that's something that, we share in our access coordinator document through 1 and 4, and hopefully to educate others on the importance of this role, that not only will it, help with diversity, but if you don't care about anything like that, right, it's at the bottom of the line, it's good for business. And even our name implies our 1 and 4, it comes from the US stat that 1 in 4 adults in America do identify as someone having a disability. And so it's one of the easier ways to make sure that your set is inclusive and that the people that you hired can do the best job to their ability of their hired role without worrying about all the other addition access needs that you need. And it's almost impossible to say that your set is, does not have anyone with a disability, because like our name and like the US Census said, right, that number is impossible. Yet, with the study by Dr. Terán and what Curran was saying as well, our representation, it's so abysmal. It's even hard to, kind of pronounce numbers when you get to the decimals and the hundreds and the thousands of that. But in my world of visual effects, I don't think there's enough talk about neurodivergence and how different minds, are the exact building blocks of what makes a team of people who are able to rebuild a whole city, for us to, blow it up, for there's, for superheroes flying around, for however have you, to see all the spectacles on screen, and for all the editors and for all the sound designers, for all the bits that if all their artistry were not there, it would be a completely different cinematic experience, right? A lot of those people are on the spectrum in some way, shape, or form, and that provides such an enrichment of your brain trust and the people who are putting together all the films. Through my work with 1 and 4, I'm also learning a lot as well. I was made aware that I didn't do my image description. I'm an Asian woman with long brown hair, and today I'm wearing a white shirt, red white shirt, and I have movie posters behind me. But through all the co-founders and all the volunteers and advocates through 1 and 4, we are also doing everything we can within our networks and within, our day-to-day works to make sure that we do see active representation. And, we also want to elevate the representation as well, and kind of moving away from the tropes that right, disability is always a struggle to overcome in some way, shape, or form. And I was talking to one of our co-founders last night, Sarah Fisher from Bridgerton, and she gave me the okay to share that on the latest season, on the highly anticipated season, we will see a maid with a limb difference. And like previous characters that exist within the Bridgerton world, which is really, kind of tilting history on a different lens, you see lords and ladies who are wheelchair users and who are speaking in British Sign Language, and there's no backstory, right? You don't need to explain why they're there. Our 1 in 4 number, kind of 25% of the population, kind of explains that loudly. We just need to exist and populate the town, and we're, really proud of helping and teaching others along the way to let them know that having a disability is one of the infinite ways you can exist, and it's about time that we see our numbers represented on screen as well.
It is about time, and shout out to Sarah, who's on the webinar with all of us. So Becky, I'm going to go back to you because Kaitlyn was talking about some excellent best practices that 1 in 4 is advocating for the creative community. But can you talk about your involvement with disability in what is it? What are some of your current priorities and expanding your impact as it's global? And what are some of the best practices or case histories that you want to share with everyone on the webinar today?
Yes, thank you. So I work at Disability In. We're a nonprofit global that advances disability inclusion across business. We work with the world's leading corporations to advance disability inclusion, and we do it through four pillars. One is data and insights. So we actually just published a report today with LinkedIn to prove that people with disabilities are able to work at companies, but they're not able to move up at the company that they're at. So then they're having to leave those companies and go try to move up somewhere else. And when people with disabilities or any employee leaves a company, it costs the company money, more than that person's salary. So why not try to figure out how we can keep employees with disabilities and help them retain and advance within the company that they applied to and got a job at? So this also translates, I think, very well into the creative field. We are working with some of the world's leading entertainment companies, but sometimes people with disabilities are not thought of in those creative roles. So how do we use the same strategies that companies are using for the specific fields that they've been asking for, STEM, finance, and business? We have learning and development, a next-gen leader program for students in STEM, finance, and business. And they then get matched with our corporate partners in jobs. But how do we continue to encourage that same approach in the creative industries? Because we want to see more representation, because that also influences the type of jobs that people think they can do or those that they're hired to do. And then we also have networking and events. It's really important for people with disabilities to have as much opportunity as possible to meet people who are willing to give them a chance. These corporations are ready, willing, and able to make change. They just want to know how. And we do know that only most accommodations cost close to nothing. And the Department of Labor said that $300 is maybe what one may cost, if it is a cost. So we're continuing to help workforces build the talent and also encourage people to self-identify. If we can get more executives like Satya Nadella at Microsoft, who openly identifies as having 2 children with a disability, one who unfortunately passed away, he has disability embedded in every area of Microsoft. It's not just that it sits in an employee resource group and in an HR or talent acquisition. It's all across the enterprise. And just like Kaitlyn said, 1 in 4, how do we make sure people with disabilities are included in every role? And we also know that people with disabilities don't necessarily want to be called inspirational and be that person who is called inspirational for getting out of bed and going to the job as an accountant. But there may be other people who are okay with it, but it's asking questions, not making assumptions, and building a roadmap to be more inclusive and not be afraid to ask the hard questions. So we have a disability index that's going to launch again in January, where corporations with 500 employees or more can measure what they're doing across the enterprise and really show their commitment to disability inclusion. So it's constantly making sure that we have the resources to support businesses to do better in this space. But we need the entertainment industry to work with us so people know what their potential is. Like the foundation says, if you can see it, you can be it.
Thank you, Becky. And so building on what Becky was saying about building a pipeline, building resources, Kurt, you are the ultimate disruptor. So can you really talk about how you are turning the business model in entertainment upside down? You created something called the XA Endowment Film Fund. What is it? What do you want to achieve? And what do you think, what kind of support do you think the industry needs to truly embrace and move this needle?
Yeah, so I started this endowment that is a financial motivator for film and television casting. And it all came from like my personal story of being in the film business for 20 some odd years, where I would rarely, obviously, I said, getting an audition for an able-bodied role. So I had to create my own opportunities. One example is Sons of Anarchy. I did not originally audition for the show. I spent 3 years trying to get an audition, couldn't even get seen, reached out to producers, was not being even like considered for anything. And I went to a charity motorcycle event where we ride motorcycles for charity and raise money. And I knew some of the Sons of Anarchy guys would be there. And fortunately, Kurt Sutter, the showrunner, was there. And I was like, this is my moment to go up and talk to him and you know, let him know what I want to do. And I made it very brief. And I walked up to him and I said, hey, Kurt, man, I really love your show. It's fantastic. He's like, thank you. And I'm like, even down to Jack, the main character, wearing white tennis shoes because he's from NorCal, like NorCal riders ride, you know, instead of wearing boots. He's like, man, I love that you love that because so many people hate on that. I'm like, yeah, because NorCal guys, they wear white kicks. I get it. And he's like, yeah, that's cool. I go, yeah, but do you know you're just missing one thing? And he says, what? And I go, every single club has a guy go down and rip their leg off. And I pulled my pant leg up to show him I was an amputee. And I said, and at the time he had business cards. I said, here's my card. I won't tell you how good of an actor I am, but I can ride motorcycles better than all your actors. And I walked away. And, you know, I was like, there was my moment. I said what I needed to say. And 5-6 months later, I get a phone call. Hey, we want to bring you in for a role that was written for you. And I read straight to producers, directly with them. And within 6 hours, I was network approved for a series recurring role on the 5th season. And now I have done that multiple times, having to bypass the process to get to a creative who can see the value of having something different that they're not normally associated with. And it made me realize that if, for instance, in Anthony's perspective, he is a director and he wanted people with disabilities authentically portrayed. So he had to go out and find a casting director that saw that vision and wanted to go for it. But he was also the financier. So he had the power to primarily make that decision. So as financiers in projects, we stipulate part of our capital requires you to cast people with disabilities in non-disabled roles or we will not finance. That's it. You want our money, you include us. You don't want our money, bring us the next one. So we make it very clear. I mean, it's much more complicated than that. But so we raise capital through a lot of different sources. We raise money through high net worth individuals who want to see change, companies, organizations, 501c3 that is appropriated. And so with that, we have had so many more conversations with the high-end people in the film business who are actually making projects. And since our inception, we've already done 7. And so the idea is I could fight with, you know, my manager trying to get me a role, but if I could just have a meeting with the showrunner, it's going to happen. My resume warrants it. and yet I'm not doing certain things. So all of my colleagues who aren't getting the opportunities to even begin to become a journey person's actor, they need to get into that place utilizing another tool like what we offer. Is some way that allows them to get the experience, get the on-camera time, but specifically for not disabledly written roles. You know, like it's a character and it's interesting and so on and so forth. And I'll read a script and go, oh, that would be really great for one of my friends. Let's say John Lawson. Like, oh, great, John Lawson. I love missing two arms. He's great. I love him. Let's put him in here. Or my buddy Toby Forrest. Like, he's great over here. Alex Ferrone. Or so many amazing people. And I am looking at these films and saying, hey, the character's not written this way. Change nothing in the script, but just include them. And how much cooler visually, because it's a visual medium primarily, how much better is that for interesting visuals? And people, so far, everyone has said yes. We've gotten 0 no's. So we just need more money. So if there are big financiers, we just need more capital.
So that's a great note, because I know we started a little bit late because of our technical issues. So I want to go around again. This is the shameless promotion part of the event. Anthony, back to you. What's the call to action? What do you need? We have a lot of powerful people on this call. What would you like our audience to do after they get off this Zoom?
Wow. Okay. Shameless promotion. Our film is now in consideration for the Oscars, so it'll be on the Academy screening room soon. So, I'm just pushing to get that film out there and distribution. It's, the key. So, but yeah, I just need more eyeballs on the film on Paper Bag Plan. So, did I say East Side Sushi? I'm sorry, I meant Paper Bag Plan. Just because, like I said, it's self-financed. We don't have the money for the big marketing machine that's going on right now in Hollywood. It's just me and my wife doing this. So the word of mouth would help quite a bit.
And what's the best way for people who want to see the film?
It's not out yet. It's just on the Academy screening room, but it's in theaters. It's closing out now, but we hope by end of January it'll be on any place you could rent streaming films. It'll be there. So end of January, you can go to Paper Bag Plan on our Instagram, and we'll put information on there too.
Wonderful. Kaitlyn, what do you need? What do you want?
I encourage everyone to go to 1in4coalition.org and read our Access Coordinator paper and forward it on. It's hopefully a short read, and we offer a lot of undeniable barrier and solutions that is applicable to every film set, and hopefully that will help us translate and up the numbers, right, in these studies. And hopefully the next one we'll have numbers in the double digits, maybe. And also, I encourage everyone to look at, who is also behind the scenes in making all your favorite film and TV shows, and really advocate for more women and non-binary people to work in visual effects and champion their work.
And one thing, people may say, well, I don't have 1 million followers. I'm not really important, but your voice really counts. So, definitely lean in. If you are on social media, lean into it, because the leading content creators, they pay attention, they're watching. So don't think that you don't have a voice. So Becky, over to you. What's the call to action for all the wonderful people on our call today?
Yes, I would say go to disabilityin.org and see all of the great resources and the research reports that we've produced. Also, feel free to connect with me on social media. Becky Motivates on all platforms. Really just want to keep helping you do better when it comes to interacting with people like me.
And Kurt, any final last words?
For me at Kurt Yaeger on social media channels, I think the power that we have is much underestimated. Kaitlyn, you know, she has a 1 in 4 organization, which is fantastic, but that's 1 in 4 of the population, 25%. That's 1 billion people worldwide. If we all got together and supported each other, follow Anthony, push his film, that will make people see his film and the people who are the voting committee at the Oscars, which I know a few, so I'll reach out to them. But like you have to amplify people's voices, because I needed to know about Anthony's film earlier. You know, and that we can all do that for each other. So follow Anthony and Kaitlyn and Becky and myself, please, on social media. Tag us in other people's posts. Tag us to people with high numbers. Like start like that happening, so people see our names, we see their names, we follow back and forth, and we create an actual community for people. And for XA, you can just reach out to me directly, but high net worth people that, you know, can give a lot of capital is important. And follow everyone in support, you know. Your voice, as Mel says, is extremely important. If you reach out to a network and tell them they did it wrong, they calculate that statistically to represent like somewhere between 5 and 10,000 people, because not everyone will reach out. So if you do, and 1,000 people do, it's like 500,000 people said, hey, why is this not right? And they listen. So use your voice. Thank you.
Absolutely. And for the Institute, I was trying to pay attention to some of the chats, but on our website, there is also a toolkit that does address the behind the camera of it, in terms of what are questions that writers should ask themselves, what are questions that content creators should ask themselves. So that is on our website. And for some of you who had to leave early or you came in late, this webinar will be publicly available. We will be promoting it on our website, through social media, through LinkedIn, all those good places. And if you have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me, either directly on social media or Geena Davis at Geena Davis org on social media, and we will get back to you. So again, I want to thank Mara Bassini Santa Maria, and I want to thank Darcy French Meyerson from joining us today from the Sign Language Company. And I wish all of you a wonderful day and a blessed holiday. And thank you so much for giving us your very, very precious time. And thank you to our panelists also for giving us their precious time. Take care, everyone. Thank you so much.